You are about to journey against the current of contemporary thought and beyond the troubled waters of daily news to the very source of our extraordinary culture. You are going upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Well, welcome back there.
Hey, Jack.
Notice I'm wearing one of these sport jackets you gave me,
Well, you look sharp, man. You look sharp.
Saved you a trip to the Goodwill, right?
That's right.
I need them being a poor, unemployed.
Author of 27 books.
Or whatever, something like that. By the way, we did our show last week on humor, and we didn't give a shout out to Babylon Bee, which is managed to.
They took it to a whole different level.
Yeah.
Because we were really, the people on the right were at the caveman level when it came to humor there.
That's right.
Institutionally. They'd try something, and it was just so
Wooden.
corn-pone.
Yeah,
and
right.
just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then when those boys rode into town, there were some guffaws there.
And they have just an unerring way to find the humor in a gentle way, even in the most dramatic and critical things. Right?
Yeah.
Like the Hamas and whatnot.
Masterful.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, they're, it was they who opened the doors to Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. When he saw that they had been banned from Twitter, he met with them. And that's how that whole process started, and which I think is in terms of speech, free speech, which we, been talking about, every week, the single most important act by an individual probably in our lifetimes. I mean, for one individual to do something.
It was a bold act. And what happened was that crossed a line for him.
Right.
And that was a line that was crossed, that there was no doubt about it. An institution like Twitter kicked them off in a very visible way.
Right.
For the crime of
being funny. Yeah.
And then to show you how, and then that poor guy goes to prison, and the government and the judicial system gets involved. We cross another line.
That's right.
And what's he going to do now?
Well, that's a good question. But as we established, there is a coalition of the oppressed who are dictating terms in America today.
That's right.
And among the Democrats, they call this intersectionality. It's not a very sexy word.
No, I'm surprised they could even find a word.
Or they could pronounce it, spell it.
I mean, when you think about how sloppy the process itself is, it's amazing that there is even a word that could apply to gathering up a bunch of malcontents for 8 million different reasons and slapping them together in one big cauldron of
simmering resentment.
And then to mobilize them in some way, shape, or form through Satan and crime. You have to find something they've got in common. It's that hatred of white male Christianity,
right.
Americana, and all that.
That was a wonderfully succinct description of the intersectional movement. When I was really pleased with, because I wrote a book in 2015 called Scarlet Letters, essentially about the woke suppression of freedoms. But I didn't have the word woke.
No, you didn't have woke. You didn't have trans.
Right. I didn't have
sexual.
I knew liberal doesn't work anymore, and progressivism was such a mouthful. And intersectional is even more of a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
I was really relieved when the phrase woke came along. That was a godsend for people on the right. I don't know if they use it on the left. We use it all the time, of course, and always in a pejorative, as it deservedly ought to be. But no, it was a very useful branding that we did not have before. But you're right. Intersectionality is essentially the coalition of the oppressed. Or people who would like to think of themselves as oppressed.
A victim class coalition.
Right.
Yeah. The union.
Right.
The labor union of the...
Right, exactly. Against the victimizers. And the victimizers are, well, you and I, for starters.
Right.
And if you're white and male, it's almost inescapable. that you're a victimizer, although some white males try to get out of it by becoming white females, which is one end run around that, you know.
Well, they're really gaining a lot of ground because they've pulled a lot of the things that formerly would have put you in that category of the oppressors.
Right.
And you're now in that group, in that cauldron with the rest. FBI agents.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. You know, even
Ray Epps.
some military people.
Right.
You know, it used to be, well, who are you against? Well, we're against Christian, white, military, FBI. No, wait a minute. Scratch those two. We got them. Let's see. What else?
The CIA.
CIA. What else? You know, they're running out of people to hold a grudge toward.
Yes.
They're running out. I mean, what are they going to do? How are they going to create more?
Right, and and every time they create a new subgroup, and probably the last major addition were the trans movement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's odd. I hate to say this, but I was at church the other day, and we go to the same church, you and I,
I wondered why you were hanging out in there all the time.
And there's this.
I thought maybe you were with the feds.
There's this wonderful little woman there who's has I don't want to get into detail, but she has mental issues that are deep-seated. They're not like crazy issues, but
Right.
Deep-seated issues limiting her capacity. Although she's sweet and speaks well and whatnot. And she was telling me how excited she was. She was going to see the Trans-Siberian Opera, you know, and or Trans-Siberian Symphony. And my first impulse was to make a trans joke, right?
Yeah.
Which I had to bite my tongue because I know she wouldn't get it, and it would have been so lost and so wrong.
And inappropriate in church.
I mean, yeah, totally. It was after church. It was during coffee and donuts.
Because you never know who you're going to make mad.
Well, because, you know, we have FBI informants at our church.
That's right.
We may very well, who may be recording our sentiments and reporting them both to the head of Christopher Wray. Is that his name? Christopher Wray?
Mm-hmm.
And Pope Francis at the same time.
Right. I mean, he's probably fed. But, you know, it's a bad feeling when I go to church.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking everybody probably thinks I'm the Fed.
Fed. Like the Ray Epps character, right?
He doesn't seem very pious.
Yeah, and so yeah, you're right. That's the bar owner from Westport. How could he possibly?
How could he be an FBI agent?
Yeah, right. But no, the problem though comes when you keep adding these groups.
Yeah.
It becomes harder to keep them all on the same page.
Oh, yeah. Because it's all circular. All the complaints are circular, and eventually they come crashing together in the most bizarre ways that give us delight and humor.
Right.
I mean, you've probably got an example in mind right now.
Well, you know, I mean, the most obvious one right now is among leftist Jews and Hamas and Hamas supporters, right?
Yeah.
This is irreconcilable.
Oh, you talk about something where there's no room for humor.
Right.
That one's it.
There it is. So let's say one side believes that gays should be allowed to marry, and the other side believes that gays should be thrown off the roofs of buildings. So where's the middle ground here? You know, maybe if you level Gaza, there's no more buildings to throw them off of. I mean, it's one compromise. But if you're putting together the woke 10 Commandments, how do you compromise on that? How do you find a happy place for everyone, right? Or let alone the trans and LGBT movements, which are, you know, like when you
playing
see
sports,
right.
the men playing in women's sport. That's a perfect example of their circular reasoning.
Right.
Finding the tail and starting to eat itself. It's happening in many, many ways, politically too.
Then the question is, when those two forces meet, who gives?
Right.
And that's you could write a whole geometry of wokeism, of intersectionality, an algebra of intersectionality, of discovering the calculus when these forces intersect.
Well, normally what happens, since they control the media 100%, is they just go, never mind.
Yeah.
And it disappears. It goes from the biggest grease fire in the kitchen to nothing.
You throw the, what is it called? The protection blanket over it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these ads. I want to buy one of those things. But that's it. You just throw a blanket over it.
And then you come up with some new crap.
Right.
This is why we've all got whiplash.
Right. Look, squirrel.
Yeah. Now.
Right.
We got whiplash. It's just like you said, you wrote that book just 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
And the crap didn't even exist.
I thought that the movement had peaked, but it hadn't.
No.
And now people are more optimistic because people are beginning to see these cracks in the alliance. But you're right; they will either patch them over or make believe they've been patched over.
It's a make believe, I think.
Yeah.
It just goes away because they control the media, and they get us all caught up in defending against other absurd accusations and crazy crap that they throw out there. I mean, we can see many concentric circles coming together right now. One of them is that athletics, the men playing, and that one's about to get pushed aside somehow. And then this one that you're talking about, this is the Zionist / Jewish / Islamic / I mean, they really it's hard to define who all the players are,
right?
And that feeds to their obfuscation, because you could go. I mean, when you hear about a skirmish now between Muslims and Israelis or Jews or Zionists or whatever in the United States military, and you're going, well, wait a minute, who's we? Is it the NATO, UN, UNESCO, International Monetary Fund, we?
Right.
Or is it what's left of the Republic, we, who is there to protect the downtrodden with our military force? Does that exist anymore? Is that the we? Is it the Zionist? Is it the religious Jews? Is it the non-religious Jews? Are these the Islamic terrorists, or who? And they expect you to, okay, boom. Now, who you mad at? Let's go. Lindsey Graham's, we got to go over there and kill everybody. It's like, and it works because, like we talked about before, Ukrainian flags pop up on everybody's Facebook all of a sudden.
Right. Although, curiously, the support for Israel and among Americans is stronger than it was for Ukrainians, I don't see any Stars of David popping up. I don't see any Jewish flags being flown. And there's a reason for that, too.
It's all crazy.
Right, because that is fear of reprisal.
Right.
So your commitment isn't that deep, Yeah. I just walked up not too long ago. There was a rally to support Israel on the plaza at the fountains, the J.C. Nichols fountains, which are now called some BS freedom fountains. You call them freedom fountains after you deny the founder his legacy. Right. But I didn't know what I was expecting. I was expecting the rally to be underattended, but I didn't expect it to be that underattended. We're talking maybe 50 people.
Really?
Yeah. I remember that same park during the George Floyd protest, and there were thousands of people.
Well, if you don't have something that appeals to the heavy-set gals,
I was going to say,
it just ain't going to fly.
They're
at the dog park or something.
I may have overestimated the number because a lot of these people took up a lot of space. But no, there were thousands, literally. And so you think about this, and this is, the strategists, Marxist strategists in the Democratic Party are always thinking about this. What plays? What will play to the masses?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see the unpretty death of a chronic drug addict and felon will have a dramatically more appeal than
At the hands of a white
police officer.
Authority figure.
Right, than the massacre of 1,400 innocent people by people of somewhat of color, right? So the latter.
But they were on the type of devices that those kind of people at the Nichols Fountain would have thought were cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they
paragliding.
Yeah,
right?
Well, they're okay. Well, they were murderers, but kind of cool the way they did it. Right. It's like, what?
And they're kind of like us because they're kind of oppressed too.
They're kind of oppressed.
You know, the irony is that by federal standards, if you're a Mideasterner, you are considered white. You are not eligible for any kind of sliding scale of affirmative action. I don't think they've told the people of Hamas that because they look like the people of Israel. I mean, you can't tell them really apart. And that's part of the show Florida. I don't know if you've ever seen that, which is a very good show about an Israeli unit that infiltrates, Palestinian territory because you can't
Semitic
tell them apart.
peoples.
Right. That's right. So, so it's not an ethnic.
I don't think there's even any DNA differences.
There's probably more European DNA through intermarriage in the Israeli population.
Well, right, there would be, and plus, different strains of Judaism.
Right, but they're all Caucasians. They're all white people.
Right.
Now, you can't tell them that because they would feel like they got thrown out of the BIPOC club, that term, BIPOC. The ironies of...
They probably got a month that would be taken away from them.
That's right. They need that month. They're lobbying for that month. I mean, Arab Americans don't have a month yet. They barely get a day. But they do get a bumper sticker, right? And that is the coexist bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Today I looked...
The sales of those have gone down.
In the last couple of weeks, since October 7th, they've certainly in Jewish quarters, they're not buying them. No, in Muslim quarters, they aren't buying them either. Maybe in woke quarters, they're still... No, only in the liberal quarters.
I don't know.
Will they be trying to convince themselves that this thing works? I looked up the origins of this. You'll love this. The original coexist bumper sticker, whatever, was made by a Polish guy in the year 2000, pretty innocently. So he has the C, which is the crescent, the Islamic crescent. Right. Then he has OE, just little letters, OE. And then the Star of David is the X, right? IS. And the Christian cross is the T. Mm-hmm. That's pretty benign, right? It's, delusional, but it's not evil. So then an American guy redoes it in 2001. And now it gets interesting. So the C is still a crescent. The O is the peace sign, right? And the version we've seen, the most common version. The E is a sign for energy. It's a science term. So the scientists have their own religion, basically, is what he's saying. X, again, Star of David. I, here's the interesting one. I is just a straight up I, but the dot is a pentagram.
A Satanist in there.
That's right.
Now, wasn't there a yin and yang in there somewhere?
Yes, that's yes.
Okay.
The S is the yin-yang thing.
Okay.
And T is still the Christian cross. So this is the intersectional alliance, except that the T isn't really in there, and the X they're both dispensable, right? The T is just for show. The X is just for show. That is the Star of David and the Christian cross. The others, though, are for real. You get the Islam, you get the science establishment, you get the peace symbol, the yin-yang, and the pentagram. But that doesn't work either. These are mutually exclusive forces in 1,000 different ways. And we're beginning to see that fabric disintegrate, which is probably the only upside of the whole Hamas-Israeli war.
I saw something today on Facebook this morning. It really puzzled me. I mean, it was a new. I couldn't come to grips with it. It was a leftist gal that I've known for a long time from school, way back. And I don't see posts from her very often, but a lot of people are posting military heroes from their family,
right? Which
for
is fair.
veterans,
right? Sure.
And this was obviously a World War II photo of a man in uniform, and it was a great photo of him, and it was obviously World War II. But down at the bottom was a color Ukrainian flag that was. So here's the guy, and like down here was a color Ukrainian flag.
Doesn't she know that was last year's fashion?
Well, I didn't even know. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't figure. It's like, this is just so weird.
He's not Ukrainian, is he? Or is
No.
He? Yeah.
No, but it was a liberal,
right,
posting the pride that she felt in her family.
Yeah, fair.
She knew that, but because it was the United States military, she had to put something on there
to qualify her. Her patriotism, right?
Her patriotism. She had to put that yard sign.
Yeah, right.
On there.
She had to remind us that she was better than us. Yeah. And that even though her father fought for the United States Army, if he were around today, he'd be fighting for the Ukrainian flag, right?
Right. It's like, and another friend of ours, he wrote something about the sign of peace in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And I had no fear about making a joke about that.
Right.
I said, I'm a complete sign of peace hater.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I said, to me, it's a yard sign personified.
Right. Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just that stilted. It's just that out of place.
That's
it's
right.
that stupid.
And it's also distraction from the
Right.
whole process of what you're there for. Right.
Right. So this kind of stilted sort of virtue signaling stuff, it just never works.
Yeah.
I guess it works in their own crowd.
I think they, I had, for instance, early on when I first saw those "In His House We Believe" signs.
Yeah.
Science
those.
is real, love is love.
Love.
Kindness is everything. After all these it's a hateful sign.
It's a hateful sign.
And it concludes with "kindness is everything."
Mm-hmm.
And I took a picture of it on someone's lawn. I was afraid they might, get angry at me, and then I posted it, and I made fun of it. And they have a very sweet cousin, who's just.
I have one of those in mine.
That's exactly right. And I really didn't want to hurt her feelings. I didn't want to say, I thought you were smarter than that, Terry. But obviously not. She's just a very sentimental, sweet lady,
Mm-hmm.
And but she had one of those signs, and although I haven't seen too many of those around either.
They're coming down.
It's a seasonal thing. It's like the year I spent a year in France, for instance, in the 80s, and what happens in French fashion is every year the colors change. So the year I was there, the colors were what's the word? Teal and moutarde, mustard, right? Mustard and teal, those are two colors, and they go together very well. And everyone wore teal and mustard, right? And not because they were trying to.
It's had its times. It was big in the 60s for a while.
Right.
Guys were actually wearing teal and mustard shoes.
Right. And so, but that was the year. So the next year I wasn't there, but it probably would have been, red and white. I don't know, whatever. But among liberals, it's that fashion oriented, right? It's like when the George Floyd riots hit, and the one joke, it wasn't New Yorker, but it should have been, was, what? I have to, there's a new season. My COVID decorations are still up, No, but the problem is, and it's fun to watch them try to manage this problem. We're seeing lots of flashpoints now.
Yeah.
Another big one. they'll try to suppress it and control it, and they probably will, is inner city blacks and illegal immigration.
Oh, yeah, this one's going to be something else. And to me, the thing that, and not only that, how about Social Security recipients and illegal immigration? Your Social Security recipient averages something like $1,500 a month.
Right.
They're giving $2,200 a month to these who knows what.
Yeah, from who knows where.
From who knows where, who haven't done anything.
Right.
So you got some 70-year-old dude who's slaved away and put who knows how much money into that racket.
Right.
And he's getting his little Hershey squirt out of it. You know, he's getting his little teaspoonful of money.
But old people they don't inspire fear. And this is one of the variables in the intersectional calculus that sometimes is overlooked. Some groups can inspire fear.
Mm-hmm. Well, they used to inspire fear at the ballot box.
Right, but some can inspire fear in the streets and in the parks and in protests. Blacks can inspire fear, always have been able to. They can outscare ladies, women, who have no fear, who do not, no matter their numbers, don't scare anyone, right? Gays really don't scare anyone. They depend on the kindness of people more powerful. Trans people don't scare anyone. The notion of transphobia is not, no one's afraid of trans people. It's not a phobia.
Phobia. Where
Right.
do they get all this crap?
Now, but Islamophobia.
Now the Comanches, no, they're scary.
Comanchophobia is
Yeah.
a real thing still
really
in
is.
certain parts of the world. But Islamophobia, if you're, say, living in England and they can put 300,000 men out in the streets together, you're finished. They own your country now.
That's where we are.
We're not there yet.
Could be.
No, we may be there if you live
They
in
just
Dearborn.
haven't turned them out because they haven't settled down yet.
No, it's
I mean, that tap's running full blast.
right, but it's coming from. I mean, if there's one virtue to our illegal immigration, is it's not coming from one source, and most of the people are coming from.
Their checks are coming from one source.
Oh, the checks maybe.
That's all that matters.
Right, that's right. Yeah, but can you put? Can you expect people who don't even understand each other's language?
They've got a phone that's telling them in their language what to do.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It's free.
Congregate.
It's called the Obama phone.
Right.
And it says, you go here, you go there, you do this, you do that.
You get your check.
You get your check.
Right. Pick up your backpack of bricks, and we'll see you at Mill Creek Park on noon. And that's and when these the intersectionality disputes occur, that's a factor. Who can gather a mass of people?
That's right.
So when I saw the rally in the park for Israel, I realized that Jews in America are doomed. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I support Israel, just to be open about that. But they are too comfortable. They're comfortable the way like they were in Germany circa 1933. And then you wonder why it took them so long to sober up, to see the handwriting on the wall, is because they were so comfortable. They were so assimilated. They were not either willing or able to fight back when that could have done some good. And so when I see 50 people in the park, and I know that the other side could turn out 5,000, you know that that the powers that be are going to wash their hands of them before too long.
Mm-hmm. Before too long is the key. It's like, how long will that be?
How long
Because
will it be?
they have that uncomfortable period now where they have to get in bed with them and publicly defend Islamists.
Right.
Which they're not. There's pushback right now when they do it. They're doing it. The what do they call them? The tribe or those characters up on Capitol Hill. Talib and
Oh yeah, the Squad.
the Squad.
Right.
They came right out of that thing, just hey, hey, ho, ho,
Yeah.
and they were, you know,
And they do it with impunity.
muffled a little bit.
But they do it with impunity because they know that they've got the numbers. Not the numbers. There's as many Jews in America as there are Islamists, but the Islamists can put their people in the street,
Mm-hmm.
and they could scare you.
And I really don't know where those numbers stand. I mean, we've got probably, what is it, 18 million Jews in the United States, something like that.
I think it's an estimate 2 or 3%, which is roughly the same, I think, for Muslims.
10 minutes ago or 20 minutes
Yeah,
ago?
right.
Because that's what I wonder.
Well,
Do we now have 12 million or 40 million? Who knows?
They are doing something that American Jews aren't doing, and that is having children.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the weakness of the American.
And rolling in the border
American.
and rolling in through the southern border.
Some,
I
sure.
mean, at a great extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very fast.
Yeah. And there's going to be a demographic battle, just like there is in Europe, which is largely lost. Ours isn't lost yet. But if you were an American Jew, I'd be first. Well, here's what they are doing. They're going to their local gun range. They're buying guns. A lot of them have gotten that message. That for years they've been saying, "What do I need guns for?" Well, now they know why they need guns, and because they're being booted out of the intersectional coalition
Mm-hmm.
for all their protests about how liberal they are and how
Yeah, they're going to have to pry that Democrat ballot out of their cold, dead hands.
it won't be easy. Lifetime habits are hard to break, As William Buckley once said of Jews, he goes, they earn like Episcopalians and vote like Puerto Ricans. But that will change, but it'll change more slowly than conservative Jews or conservatives in general would like to think,
Yeah.
I know it's a major source of frustration for conservative Jews, has been for a long time. And, that 30%, Trump got 30% of the Jewish vote. He didn't get that high a percentage of the Arab vote or the Muslim vote. And the Muslims went 6-1 for Biden, which makes some way, and in some ways makes no sense at all because on social issues, they're to the right of the Christian right, in terms of issues like abortion, homosexuality, female rights, etc.
Again, we're getting into that weird concentric circles of leftism,
Right.
where it just it's going to crash.
Oh, it's almost inevitable. But the question is, it would be what they should do is take the climate scientists and redirect them into the intersectional science and see if you can predict what's going to happen. Probably do it better. Do it better than you're doing with climate, which is you're just making stuff up.
I don't think they're even trying on that. They're just making crap up. They're just throwing spaghetti on the wall and saying, "Look how it's climate. It's climate." Oh, okay. How can I prove you wrong?
Well, see, that's
you
their
can't.
cult. That's their religion. They have a doomsday scenario. They've got a Garden of Eden. They've got the whole ball of wax. And this is where it gets interesting because they are historically a member of that intersectional coalition. The Greens are a key part of that power faction, power alliance. But here's they've had to give. They used to be, the serious Greens were totally against illegal immigration for the simple ground that it created more Americans who became, once they left Guatemala and came to the United States, next thing you know, they're buying big car, refrigerators, air conditioning, all the kinds of things that Greens dislike.
Well, the Greens are eugenicists. They're zero summers.
That's
They're
right.
Gaians.
That's right.
So they are anti-humanists.
Yeah. And now they're being flooded with new humanity who, they say what you will about these people, they're not reluctant to propagate their species, And they also, part of the Green movement against illegal immigration was that they, F up all these desert habitats that they're crossing over, right? that, there's some stepping on little turtles and snail darters and, eating, fishes or whatever. I don't know what they do, but they're not good for the environment any which way. But they've given that up. They've yielded to the larger power coalition because the ultimate goal of the intersectional alliance is to hold power.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone's always got to give. Blacks had to give up on their opposition to gay marriage. Women had to give up on their opposition to men in their locker rooms. I mean, among other things, someone's always giving up. And at some point, someone's going to say, no mas, I'm not giving up. Then the question is, will they have the power? Not just the votes, but the people in the streets. Can they put people in the streets?
Or do they move on to another thing and that goes away?
That's possible too. And here's where the woke mobs come in handy, because they can amplify the power of any of these groups.
Mm-hmm.
So the George Floyd protest, without all the chubby girls with pink hair,
mm-hmm.
would have been far less effective, right? And same thing, we're seeing this in New York. The Hamas crowds are, I don't know what percent, Muslim they are. They're, I think, a high percentage of chubby girls with pink hair.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. And it looks like Jewish, what's the word? Not religious Jewish, but
secular?
Secular liberal Jews are actually
right
in that mix, which has really got to be a head scratcher for a lot of people.
For their parents.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's bad enough that your kid becomes trans, but then when he becomes, a Muslim
mm-hmm.
sympathizer. And then they do things like, which is curious, in New York, attacking the New York Times. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. And the New York Times has been their attack dog for so long.
Right.
And then, and I really, and that gets to that whole thing that's very difficult for me, probably a lot of outsiders who aren't Jewish to understand the nuance, the difference between Zionists and religious Jews. And because the New York Times is a Zionist publication, I believe.
Well, I mean, it's certainly historically a Jewish-owned publication.
But then I don't know whether that one translates to the other. I really don't know what that relationship is.
No, in fact, religious Jews, a lot of religious Jews are anti-Zionist.
Yeah, and that adds to the confusion. And and just because someone has an ethnic origin that's Jewish, does that mean they come down on one side or the other of the Zionism issue?
No, from their perspective, no. But from the side of the Muslim activists, they all look alike.
That's right.
So you could be the guy in Brooklyn with the curly things coming down the side of your head. I know there's a word for that. I don't know it.
Curlicues.
Yeah, right. Oh, curlicues. I'm going to make a mental note of that. Though Lois says I'll check with my rabbi afterwards. In fact, it reminds me. I saw this book the other day. It was a Yiddish Dick and Jane, right?
Oh, okay.
So. And it's like a regular Dick and Jane book, written at that level.
Except everything ends in a question mark.
There's that. But they also introduce new words, right?
Uh-huh.
So Dick comes to Jane's house. Dick keeps eating Jane's food. Dick is a schnorrer, right? Or Jane, Dick does something and Dick is a schlemiel. I mean, they work in each word. They work some Yiddish phrase, and been in the standard for American comedy since Ed Sullivan was born. But no, so there's a lot of variations. But from the other side, just like happened during World War II, from the German side, it didn't matter whether you're secular or religious. It didn't matter whether you were 1/2 or 1/4. At the end of the day, you're all getting your yellow star, right? And then at the final end of the day, you're getting paraded into, boxcars. And each step along the way, you're thinking that this is a civilized country. This can't happen here.
It was only a Twitter post.
Right. Yeah. And then what happened is what's been happening for all these years is the people who are saying, who are correcting those who say this can't happen here, they're pointing to the right and saying it is happening here. These are the fascists, right? So this utter total misdirection by the people with the playbook, so that the fascists are the people who are your best defenders, who will be your protectors at the end of the day, or the people who will come to your armed aid if need be, are the people that you've been trained to call fascists all your career. So it's got to be very confusing now, especially in Jewish households.
And it feels kind of near.
It does.
Feels kind of like there's a lot of pus there that's built up.
And in England, I'm told, from inside kind of sources, that everyone who can get out, every Jewish person who can get out, is looking to get out. But there's only two real places to go. Actually, there's several. I mean, any of the British colonies is acceptable in a sense, America, Canada, Australia. Or Israel. But that, I'm not sure I'd want to move to Israel today. So that's how bad they perceive the circumstances to be there. So for all those years, they marched in those green movements and peace movements and, and George Floyd protests, and doesn't count.
Can you imagine a white middle-class American diaspora where we're all like in our Buick Electra 225s, our fat bellies, and we got our cigars, and we're like, where the hell do we go?
Now, right?
Where do we go now? Hey, Bengal, can we come in here? India, hey. It's like, we're moving in. We've had it. We're not wanted in America anymore.
I think Hungary, maybe the last
Hungary.
refuge with Viktor Orban.
Yeah.
They've kept out refugees. And I suppose they'd like to have Americans. They'd probably make us pay a lot to go there, I know a lot of people go to Portugal. I don't know what's in Portugal. It's not going to, when...
Just a bargain.
Yeah, right. And enough people, they've been exploited enough without rebelling against the exploiters, so that they're happy to take your money. But no, and as they say, if America goes, where do we go? Who's going to come to our aid? No one. But we will have some internal problems before this is all over. And I would say of all the major countries, we're the only one where the outcome is still in doubt.
Still a jump ball, is it?
Yeah, still a jump ball. And I'm an optimist, you're not, but you're less an optimist than I am, I should say. But I think our side will get the tip. But the later that moment of crisis comes, the less chance we'll have of winning.
I don't even know what winning looks like at this point.
That's a good question.
If you gotta mop the whole place up and it's 70% psychos and lunatics,
yeah,
what the hell good is it?
Right, and plus you have to play by, if you want to keep your integrity, you have to play by Western civilized Western rules. That's Israel's handicap. And the world holds them to that standard. It doesn't hold anyone else to that standard.
No.
Certainly not Hamas. But what we need to do is have a woke person come on our show sometime and explain wokeism to us, walk us through it. We should be asking them these questions. Tell us about the intersectional lines. The problem is they won't know anything. They don't know anything about what they're doing.
They don't. That's why they don't have any talk shows, Jack. It's all circular.
Yeah.
All their logic is circular.
Yeah.
Cannot have a talk show because you can't move the ball forward.
Right.
Nobody, you listen to your favorite truth talk show and you feel like you've learned something, or you've moved it down the road a little bit in your own mind, and there's some resolution here and there.
Right.
You remember when they tried to do that America Talks Back, whatever, that crap with Janine Garofalo and all that stuff.
Right. No, that was just...
It was just an exercise in frustration.
And wheel spinning. I would say Bill Maher, I'll give him that credit for exposing wokeism to liberals,
And
making them see the contradiction.
Yeah, and he will move it forward.
Yeah.
As he, he's like he's like an enlightened heel.
Yeah.
So he's a heel,
Yeah.
but he'll do a little. Okay, let's not get too ridiculous. I mean, let's all let everybody in on the joke here.
And he'll appeal to his audience with his really a deep case of Trump derangement syndrome that allows him to keep his audience.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's faked. I doubt it. It just seems too deep-seated, and it's also it undermines his credibility as a person because it's a mania. It's a sickness. He can't.
Now, I'm going to admit that I have found Bill Maher to be kind of funny sometimes.
Oh, he can be.
And I admit that Jon Stewart sometimes is funny.
He was so much better than the other people who have followed in his wake.
But
Stephen Colbert,
most
Jimmy
of those
Kimmel?
people just
Yeah, right.
blow.
They do. I feel like that any given night I could take their place and do better. I could write my own jokes and do better than the jokes they come up with. Like they were off the air when the Hollywood writers were off because they didn't have jokes. You mean people actually get paid to write that crap?
I wrote some stuff for Kimmel and Adam Carolla.
Oh, Adam Carolla's okay.
I wrote some stuff for them.
Now, was it piecework or was it?
Yeah, it was. I contributed to the show, the first Kimmel show.
Yeah.
And then they had a show called, they had a company called Jackhole Productions.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And what did I write? Something called Crank Yankers, where they did crank calls.
Oh, okay. Right. Sure. Yeah.
And so I wrote this one, and it turned out Sarah Silverman delivered it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she called these people and said she was from the department of the sewer department or whatever. I can't remember what he was called. And she said, we've been having a lot of problems coming from your line, and we'd like to talk to you about your diet. And you're going to need to cut down on some things because the clogs seem to be emanating from your house. And she did a really good job with it. And it was the one shtick that Kimmel talked about when he was out promoting the show.
Right.
Was my shtick.
Huh.
So he was, but after that one episode, then they brought in their full staff and they had real writers.
Well, you should have stuck around. You might have actually helped them out, I mean, there's people go months, years without saying anything funny or anything amusing. But that's part of the problem with comedy today. It's in the hands of the wrong people. And part of the problem with the culture today, it's in the hands of too many people, and they're all competing with each other. Maybe that's the salvation, too, is that their inability to get along will fracture the intersectional alliance and return sanity to the USA. But for people who want sanity every week on a regular basis,
I'd say Upstream with Cashel and Edge.
And if you want to produce your own sanity, come out here to Real Media in Overland Park. Call Brad to say, hey, I want to make a difference. I want to start putting out product instead of just sitting around BSing, so with your friends.
I want to do real live great promotions for my business.
Yep.
Instead of having pictures of us in our red T-shirts doing the devil horns and saying, we ran in the 12K.
And you want to do it at a place where they're simpatico.
Simpatico,
right?
yeah.
Which matters. So, hey, I want to thank Carly, our producer. Aloy, thanks for making the show so informative and witty. And
thank you for being you, Jack.
Well, I will thank myself for the same thing.
All right.
That's two of us now thanking me. So, hey, we'll see you next week, guys.
Bye-bye.